guys, I'm going to be re-recording my law builds video. I have much more concise builds this time. Also, this was as per subscriber request, so I'm just going to go through it. But I'm also going to go a little more in depth with our card choices and just some overall gameplay things into other decks. You guys let me know if this is what you want to start seeing more of as we do deck techs in the future, like right before I do my games section. But here we go. We have law. You're going to see a lot of similarities between all three of them. So in that case, I'm not going to go over it every time. I'm just going to go over the key differences to note. This is an extremely aggressive law list. As you see, we're playing this 3K Sunny. Just because it's searchable by Nami and it helps fill out our cards, I want to hit high numbers of 1-drops so that I can curve into our... not curve, rather than be able to swap them out quickly and be able to play consistently to the board. And honestly, this 3K, this little innocuous 3K gets there sometimes. You can reduce this to 2, but I just like having that high density of 1-drops, which is why I went for it. It swings pretty decently into Zoro, which is one of our harder matchups. You can attempt to put up a little more aggression against a deck that we would normally have a struggle with. Racing Zoro is not always the smartest thing, but at least being able to trade effectively or more efficiently into their board helps. We're playing for Cat Viper into green. It's amazing. Into the Law Mirror, it's amazing. Tapping down the 1-drop, swinging into them, keeping them off 5 while you build yours is how you want to go. We're doing the 2-2 split of our 8 2K counters with this Izo here. Just because she offers a little more versatility. She offers basically a Cat Viper 5 through 6, also being that 2K counter. And tapping down a 4 cost doesn't sound like much, but there are some relevant 4 costs in other colors that matter, that are blockers, which is when you're trying to be aggressive like we are here, is pretty important. We're running this 1-of killer just because it's a supernova searchable, repeatable off this law, so you can potentially get a kill off killer and then rebuy that on play effect again later. Also, you know, doesn't always come up, but a trigger, so it can come up against Zoro and pop one of their own Zoro rush cards or one of their 2K attackers. I upped the count to 3 for our Nico Robin just because I like having this ability. I probably, honestly, if it were up to me, I would switch these numbers just because having her ability is more important than rushing. But you know, aggro is the name of the deck, and I wanted to just show it off a little more just because we have this law and this law, which essentially are doing the same things. This one a little differently, but you can swing with Zoro, do one of your bounce effects, play this law, bounce the Zoro, attack with the Zoro again by putting him back into play, and hopefully bouncing like one of your search cards so you can get value off later, or one of your 2K counters, because you should be playing them because you are law and you can rebuy their value. So you can take advantage of their really interesting on-play abilities. Brook lets you get really aggressive into law, so you can make a 7K swing with law and then rebuy that 2K counter later. So that's why we do it. 4 of law, I don't really need to explain it, but I will. Being able to double bounce because of the leader effect and just reshuffle all this value effects is amazing. And into slower matchups, bouncing your own law, like if you have 2 of them in play, is so good because it again lets you keep this value train going of on play into on play into on play. I've had people quit on me before the game's actually finished just because I was sitting on like 10 cards and I just kept bouncing this law with another law. You know, attacking for 7K, bouncing that law, playing a fresh law, playing another search card to get value off of, or tapping down a blocker, killing the blocker. Like, it's so good. This is why we're playing this deck. Like this card right here, this leader, this effect, and these 2 searchers are like what make the deck run so freaking smooth. Luffy, unblockable rush. I mean, I shouldn't have to explain why this is good. This is how we close out our game. which is also why we don't need to see so many of it, just because you typically don't just play this out just because you're doing this at the end of the game. I'm swinging, you can't block, I'm taking home the bacon. This law does a similar thing to this one, with the added value of being able to take advantage of the fact of any added on Don. So like if I attach 2 Don to the Zoro swung for 7k, I can restand him and attack for 7k again, whereas this law, unfortunately, all the Don you had attached gets removed once it goes back to your hand, so when he comes into play, he's only swinging for 5. So that is the major difference to note there. Still worthy of using. If by chance you have a Luffy and you were able to swing and you were able to still use your law ability, it's so good. Like rebuying this is such a good thing. Sorry, wrong one. So yeah, restanding this is amazing. This Basil Hawkins is just so good for the board, like swinging into other green decks, because guess what? Green's going to be one of the best colors going forward. And even into red, like you can still get pistoled, but if he's able to stick, amazing value. Like good luck swinging into me and maintaining a board. Like this Hawkins is really good. We're only going to run the one of though, just because we have Bonnie. And unlike any other of the search decks, like you're able to hit a lot of searches. I've gone through games where I've almost seen my entire deck and stacked it with Bonnie and Nami like cycling. Next step, we're gonna go into a more board control version. Like this is what I would run if I only saw green. Like this into green is probably the most disgusting deck I've had the most success with. So we're running that high density of 1-drops again to 24, except now we have Momonosuke as a 3rd search card. And it can be a little dicey running the 3 tribes that we have and adding the Sokiku to help us with it. But when it works, man, let me tell you, it works. I've beaten Kaido with this deck, just being able to maintain constant pressure, getting rid of the blockers. Like if they're not hitting their 7-drop king or 10 cost Kaido, GG, bro. And just as a thing to note of all 3 versions, into Kaido, what you really want to be doing is rebuying this Nami value off the law, or rebuying this Bonnie value off the law, and making sure that when you're approaching that 10 cost turn, which can come fast, you're ready to rebuild the board right away and search and get value. So like you're playing your whole hand out, but getting some of it back with your search cards, and that is how you beat Kaido. You also want to make sure that you're staying above a certain threshold of life. Because remember, two life against Kaido is the same as 1 life, and even 0 life. To be honest with you, like it can be really dicey. So you have to be really careful on how you're playing into Kaido. He's one of our weaker matchups. Is it as bad as Zoro? I don't think so. Just because you're able to still attack aggressively and make them blow counters early. While, again, with cards like this, keeping blockers that would normally annoy you out of the way. Along with this Cat Viper. So yeah, I'm a huge fan of this. I've had fun with this list. It's really fun. It's really good. Into red, it can still be rough. It sounds like it would be easier because we have so many ways to keep the board clean. We're running the extra copy of Hawkins in this list, but it's still by no means an easy matchup because they have access to Robin, they run 4 pistol, and they run cheap attackers that can just whittle you down very quickly because we're sitting at 4 life. So again, very hard matchup. Into green, like I said, not any of these builds I think are weak into green. This probably being the weakest one, maybe, which is why I said I would run 4 Robin, and then I'd probably say this is probably the most favorite, still very favored. But you still have access to this Otama pistol combo, and you're putting really constant pressure on. So I like all versions of Law into green. I think you're medium into purple. I don't think you're out by any stretch. Some purple players will be like, oh, this is free. It's really not. And I beat it with the slowest version, which would be this very board control oriented version. I'd still beat Kaido with it, with tight play and just having that value. So that's what I would do. This law version, I think is really good. You just not soft. You're not as soft as any of the other builds into Zoro, I believe, just because you have the Sunny Kun to help swing early, and you can put up your own version of aggression and keep them on their toes. You would just have to play a little differently. You might have to rebuy some, like burn some of your value early, like tapping. Normally, you would never play Bonnie and activate the ability right away against any of the other decks, because you want to be able to keep it alive so that we hit our 5-card threshold. But into red, it's actually kind of worth it to burn it, just because you getting 5 characters against them isn't going to be something that's feasible all the time when they're running Robins, like I said. And even to green, it can be a little annoying. I still think it's one of your easier matchups, but Cat Viper makes it really difficult early game. And then my favorite version, I've run this in 2 of our Good Day tournaments recently and have gone 3-1 and lost into Zoro, like I said, in the final. But this is still a really, really good deck. This, again, lets you destroy Kid very easily. You will out-Kid them without even trying. You will be the better Kid deck by far. Because why? We get to do what other green mirrors don't get to do, which is have this Otama pistol combo. We have access to a round table, which can set up a Nico Robin kill into Kid. Just make him minus 2,000, attach a Don, boom, boom, GG. You're also running all the same cards that we're normally running. We're running 1 less 1-drop, which would be like, whoa, dude, but why? Well, we have to take into account we are playing a more mid-rangey deck, so we can play a game where we're not worried about hitting this 5 cards right away, whereas the other 2 decks, well, the first deck, you really want to do it. In the second deck, you have mid-range plays to make, so it's not as important. And this one even more so, because we're playing to this 8-cost Kid. You have access to a rush package. It's not as much, but you have it. Luffy being our game winner, and Zoro just constant pressure against Kaido. So this is definitely the more like I have game against everything, but it's probably not the best against everything. But with tight play, it can seem that way. Like I've never felt out of a game. Even against the match where I lost to Zoro, there was a world where I won it, but it was still pretty hard. I got him down to 0 life, I believe. Anyway. You just have the same package we're running in the first one with our 2k counter split. Being able to buy the value off of them is really good. Brook being more aggressive, Izo being like clear, either board clear or allowing you to put more aggression forward. She doubles us both. Our Robin removal, we need it into the mirror, into green, into red. She's very helpful. Being able to clear like 2 of the 4Ks by swinging into one and then doing an atomic combo with her, which is probably what you're going to be doing more in that matchup. You're going to save those jet pistols to kill opposing Robin into red. Into green, like I said, you are the better green deck by far, just because you can answer their strategy while they have to look at you as you build your board and start swapping out, double your combo. These 3 Radical Beam. I know I've said you shouldn't be running so many event cards, like you're in the Zoro deck and stuff like that. Most decks I've played, I only top out at like 6 event cards. We're making the exception here because, again, red-green being 4 life takes advantage of this card the best. So hitting 2 life is actually pretty easy. And having access to a Blast Breath in red to help keep this card alive in the end game is ridiculous. Like having that 1 Dawn of Radical Beam make this a 12k when your opponent is already struggling to swing into it is amazing. So that is why we are running this. It helps you stay alive. Like I said, it is Blast Breath. So into those aggressive matchups where you have access to Radical Beam, which is another way to help us stay alive and then stabilize to take the board. We're running the 2 killer as opposed to 1 this time, just because again, red can be hard. Also, I didn't really talk about it. Into green, Okiku can be a nightmare. In the same way that we're running it into green, Okiku into us can be super, super hard. And just, alright, we'll take the L on the first swing, but then we can at least trade her off relatively quickly. So we have the 2 killer as extra removal options that aren't pistol, because pistol will eat up your turn most likely, whereas killer doesn't. And again, like I said, he is a trigger card, so there is a world where they'll swing with Okiku, tap something down, take my life, and then bam, killer trades it immediately. So killer really good into the red matchup and is an answer for the Okiku green matchups. Again, all 3 decks, you want to be cycling your search cards into purple because you need to be rebuying that value in order to keep yourself in the game. And yeah, that's it. That's our matchups. Blue, honestly, I think this is the best green deck into blue. Blue, in my opinion. I've only played as Crocodile into Law 1 time, and I won barely, and I lost 1 convincingly. Bouncing my cards does nothing. Even like green, you can get away with bouncing cards and getting value that way. No, bouncing Law's cards does absolutely nothing, and it can sometimes hurt you, unless it's like Zoro or this Law that blocks. So it can be pretty tough. So that's my matchup knowledge here. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm going to be replacing the old one, and that's it. This wraps up all the coverage of OP-01 metagame. Look forward to the OP-02 stuff. I'm going to be recording games of that. If you guys want to start seeing me do like little short streams, I do have a busy schedule. Let me know, and I will do streams of the OP-02 metagame. But that's it. Don't forget to like and sub. Peace.